Olá, boa tarde, pessoal. Nós vamos esperar mais alguns minutinhos para todo mundo entrar. That looks nice, Mada.
Reminds me of our trip to Brazil, Felipe. Although we didn't go there. But...
We were there. This is a photo from Rio.
We went to the sugar thing, right?
Oh, yeah. We didn't go to the Corcovado, but we went to Pão de Açúcar.
Cool. Should we get started or wait another minute?
Let's give it like 30 seconds. I think I started. Okay, we can start.
Ok, vamos começar. Olá, pessoal, tudo bem? Eu sou o Felipe Noguerol, da Branch. Eu estou baseado aqui na Califórnia, em São Francisco. E ao meu lado está a Mada, que é uma das cofundadoras da Branch. Mada, say hello.
Hi. That I am.
Nós vamos começar com uma introdução sobre o webinar e introdução, apresentação minha e da Mada. O comecinho vai ser em português, para dar uma ideia para o pessoal sobre o que é a Branch em curto tempo. E daí a maioria da apresentação vai ser em inglês. Então, se vocês quiserem agendar uma conversa em português, eu fico feliz em fazer isso, mas porque a Mada está aqui com a gente e porque também temos hispanohablantes no call, porque isso aqui não vai ser só para o Brasil, mas para a América Latina inteira. Nós vamos continuar em inglês. O tema de hoje vai ser estratégias orgânicas de app growth. Mara, you can go to the next slide. Yep, thank you. E na parte de preparação, só para todo mundo saber, a audiência está no mudo. Então, se você tiver alguma dúvida, é só colocar no chat lá embaixo. Pode escrever em português ou em inglês. E durante a apresentação ou no final da apresentação, a gente pode responder. O webinar está sendo gravado. Então, se você quiser a gravação depois, nós vamos mandar por e-mail. E, por último, nós teremos uma votação ao vivo durante o webinar. Vamos ter 2 polls para a participação de vocês. Então, fiquem de olho aí. All right, next slide, Mara.
Hi, everyone.
Go ahead, Mara.
So I understand some Portuguese, but I don't speak it. So my part, I think, we'll do, since we will be doing this in English. But if you have any questions, let us know in Portuguese, and we have Felipe here who can translate. So about me, I am one of the Branch founders. I did marketing. Before Branch, my same co-founders and we built an app. Before that, I was doing engineering and product, and a little bit about, I've been passionate about growth since we started that app, and I drove a lot of the marketing growth at Branch, but I also teach this course at Stanford around growth. So some of the concepts you'll see me talk about today are concepts from our Stanford course.
E olá, de novo, eu sou Felipe. Eu nasci no Brasil, em Mogi das Cruzes, em São Paulo, e com 6 anos mudei para a Califórnia, para o Vale do Silício, com os meus pais. Antes de entrar na Branch, basicamente a única coisa que eu fazia era jogar futebol, como qualquer brasileiro. Então, cresci jogando futebol na Califórnia e na Flórida. Fui jogar futebol na Universidade de Stanford. E depois de me formar, eu fui na Branch e ano passado comecei a nossa expansão para a América Latina e para o Brasil, com uma viagem junto com a Mada para São Paulo, para o Rio. E nós tínhamos planos para abrir um escritório esse ano, mas por causa do Covid não deu. Então ainda está nos planos, mas por enquanto nós vamos gerenciar a expansão desde os Estados Unidos. Se vocês quiserem agendar qualquer call ou tiver qualquer dúvida, eu vou ser o contato principal para a região. Alright, Mara? Então, a agenda para hoje, nós vamos começar, antes de entrar nas táticas e nas estratégias e nos exemplos de todos os nossos parceiros, nós vamos focar bastante em por que as estratégias orgânicas são importantes. O que a gente vê é que muitas companhias investem muitos reais, muitos dólares nas campanhas de mídia, mas eles têm tanta oportunidade de otimizar estratégia orgânica para levar a crescimento orgânico e barato e econômico para o seu app. Então, nós vamos falar por que isso é importante e depois disso entrar nas táticas de SEO, as táticas de web to app, que para muitos aplicativos é a maior oportunidade de dirigir crescimento. E daí no final, uns exemplos bem legais dos nossos parceiros que nós vamos compartilhar com vocês com alguns resultados. Go ahead, Mara. Para as pessoas que não conhecem a Branch, eu vou dar só um resumo rápido. Tem 3 áreas principais de onde ajudamos os nossos clientes. A primeira é a parte de deep linking. A Branch começou como uma plataforma de linking. O nosso maior foco, bem no começo, foi eliminação de experiências quebradas no mobile e ajudando os nossos parceiros a se sentir confiante que todos os links que eles colocam nas suas campanhas, seja em e-mail, seja em campanhas de mídia, seja para usuários compartilhar links entre um ou outro, que funciona perfeitamente para todo usuário e que a experiência seja a melhor possível. Com isso, nós criamos uma plataforma mais holística de atribuição, onde o foco não é só em canais pagos, tipo mídia e performance, mas também a expansão de links e atribuição através de todos os seus canais orgânicos e pagos. E como a experiência é super importante e o nosso foco não foi sempre em app, a gente fornece a mensuração não só na parte de app, mas na parte de web, no mobile, e na parte de desktop, no mobile também. Desculpa, desktop na web também. E por último, com essas duas coisas, o que a gente ajuda realmente a fazer para os nossos clientes é crescimento dos seus aplicativos, aumento de engajamento, de conversões, de retenção. Então, acho que as estratégias que nós vamos mostrar hoje vai mostrar um pouco de como a gente faz isso. Go ahead, Mara. Thank you. Então, é aqui onde senta a Branch, no meio do ecossistema de um cliente. Aqui eu estou usando o exemplo da Nike, que é um dos nossos clientes maiores aqui nos Estados Unidos. No lado esquerdo tem todos os canais que você pode colocar os links da Branch e você pode colocar eles lá de forma manual, mas o que é uma vantagem muito grande da branch é poder escalar o depoimento de links através de todos esses canais com muita facilidade. E daí levar o usuário ao lugar certo, seja no app, seja na web, seja em desktop, e daí unificar essas jornadas, unificar a experiência, unificar a atribuição em uma plataforma só. Então, o que a gente vê com muitos clientes que mudam de um MMP para branch, ou que não usam nenhum MMP e começam usando a branch, é que muito do crescimento deles no começo vem na parte de ads. E quando eles mudam para branch, o que a gente ajuda a fazer é não só aumentar o crescimento total, mas também aumentar a visibilidade, a visão sobre as atividades orgânicas e otimizar as atividades orgânicas, para que você não seja tão dependente nas campanhas de mídia, mas você usa mais estrategicamente os canais que você tem o maior controle, tipo o seu website, programas de referrals, de user get user, suas campanhas de e-mail, se você é uma companhia de retail ou uma companhia bancária, por exemplo, QR codes para poder fazer a transição de um usuário de um lugar físico para ter o aplicativo. Então, o foco da branch é bem compreensivo mesmo. Ok. Então, antes de começar com o conteúdo, nós temos nosso primeiro poll. Então, vou colocar aqui para vocês responderem quais estratégias de baixo custo e orgânicas vocês já usam para o crescimento do seu app. Nós vamos deixar isso aqui um minutinho para todo mundo responder. E daí a gente coloca os resultados.
So I think while the poll is running, I am going to move into talking a little bit about organic and SEO, and I apologize it's in English. I hope you guys understand me. So let's start with why is organic important? So, let's start with looking at what happened during COVID and how COVID disrupted how apps acquire new users. So we saw something really interesting at the beginning of COVID, and it was that web really started being more interesting, but paid ads, sorry, this poll thing, paid ads really went down. So I think as people started seeing a lot of uncertainty in the world and not really understanding where their business is going, are they going to get more users? Are they not going to get users? Are they going to get, they started actually spending a lot less on paid. And we started seeing that being supplemented by other organic channels. So referrals and sharing did really, really well. I think as people started being cooped up at home, and as the pandemic was accelerating, people started using social apps more, interacting with users. So them sharing started becoming really big. As the lockdowns started loosening up, we saw that dropping, but we believe that actually it's really interesting. I think a lot of countries around the world, definitely North America, is now going into a lot more lockdowns. So we'll see if this actually changes. And then we saw that people started putting a lot more effort into social media. So a lot of links and users coming from social media because people are spending a lot more time online. So these are some of the trends that we've seen. Again, ads decreased significantly at the beginning of the pandemic and then started picking back up as people started seeing more certainty, as vaccines started getting announced, and people think, the idea behind that is it's a really great channel to use when you're looking for certainty. And if you're willing to spend, it's a very predictable model of how much users you're going to get. But that only makes sense if you're sure that those users are going to come to you, they're going to actually buy, and that doesn't make sense in times of uncertainty. Smart banners are a really interesting one. They drove more app installs early in pandemic, and then they went kind of back to where they were before. This was just a very interesting trend, and it's one that we're going to keep watching to see if, as things start coming back to normal, if this will like go back to the baseline. And user acquisition via own social media has become very high. And I think that's been something that will probably continue all the way through the end of the pandemic, because people are spending, and I think we have a few other graphs, but people are spending a lot more time online and on social media. And then refer installs, again, as we said earlier, they spiked early in the pandemic, but have fallen again. And TBD, what's going to happen during the holidays, they might actually increase back up as people are getting new devices. A lot of them are forced to stay home. A lot of countries around the world are putting lockdowns during the holidays, because that's when they travel, and that could like make the pandemic be bigger. So maybe our prediction is that the sharing will go up again during the holiday season. And email has been a very reliable source that has gotten users to apps, and there hasn't been a lot of fluctuation during it. So that's how users get to the app. And we did this analysis looking at a few hundred apps using Branch. But what's really interesting is if you compare paid with organic, our research found that organic channels such as referrals, web, banners, email are way more effective at driving purchases. So yes, the user that you get from an organic channels is 4.4 times more likely to drive a conversion to purchase than a user that you get from paid. So that I think is probably one of the reasons that paid has gone down, and people started like doubling down on the organic channels during the pandemic. And outside of just conversion to purchase, even just conversion to sign up or whatever your conversion event is, when we did this analysis looking at the first conversion event that the app had set, and for some of them was purchase, for others with like a subscription, for others was just sign up. So we looked by acquisition channel, and we compared ads to email, to smart banners, and to referrals. And obviously referrals are the highest. If you get a link from a friend and you click on that link, you are more likely to actually convert. But smart banners did really well, email, and they all did a lot better than ads. And the other thing we looked at beyond just conversion, we looked at retention. And I think this one is a very interesting one, where retention from people who come to your app from a smart banner on your website stays very high. So if you get those users to actually, click a link and download your app, they're actually more likely to stay with you, versus people coming from referrals, it's slightly lower, and ads much, much lower. So by day 28, there's a huge discrepancy for someone coming from, a smart banner whose likelihood to stay with you is over 40%. And then someone coming from an ad whose likelihood to stay with you is much, much lower. The other thing that's really interesting when you think about organic versus paid, organic channels get you like real users, versus paid channels are still susceptible to fraud. So I think Branch has some really great tools to help prevent that. But fraud is still something there, and it's still there, and advertisers will lose more than 23 billion globally due to ad fraud next year. So the other thing that's really interesting here is when you think about paid and when you think about ads, is the changes that happen with iOS 14. So as many of you know, for iOS, and we believe actually Google and Android, we know that in Brazil, Android usage is much higher than in other parts of the world, but we actually believe that Google will follow suit on this one. But for iOS, with iOS 14, the IDFA is basically inaccessible. I mean, yes, you will be allowed to ask users if they allow you to track, but to be able to actually make a match that the user got to you, you actually need double permission, both from the app where the user is coming from, and the app that the user is installing. And the big networks, the big self-attributing networks, I think are not going to actually make that ask. So it will be very rare that you actually will be able to get both those permissions. So for all intents and purposes, the IDFA is really by default to be inaccessible. So the other challenges with this is that it's actually going to be very hard to track both campaign and conversion. So we believe that in time, SKAd network will evolve and Apple will make this better. But in the meantime, when you think about campaigns, Apple only will allow you to track 100 campaigns. So you have something called the campaign ID, and you can only give it a value between 1 and 100. And even worse is this idea of conversion. And to be able to track a conversion, you will only be permitted values between integers between 0 and 63, so only 64 values. And the way you track these, like these values need to be consequent. So, if like your sign up is value 2, anything that's after sign up needs to be a higher value. So it's very hard to track things like someone might buy first and then sign up, or someone might like sign up and then buy. It actually can become quite complicated in the way you track this with SKAd network, and we'll write like some advice around this. But no matter how smart you get at this will never be as good as like it used to be before, where you could have any kind of conversions, and you could, we have customers that track hundreds of conversions on their platforms. The great news is that yes, for iOS it will be tough. But there's a whole world around it. So again, this is the IDFA is only an issue for iOS app-to-app, iOS ads, but other platforms, Android is not yet impacted. It might be in the future. And iOS own and organic channels, web-to-app, iOS ads, those are not impacted. Only app-to-app ads are impacted by this. So we talked about organic, why organic is important, and part of it is because it's not IDFA is not impacting it, and we think it's it converts better. So we'll talk about some organic strategies, and I think the best one, when people ask me what's the lowest hanging fruit, what is like the easiest way for them to get users to their app, I think one of the first ways you can go about that is really building SEO and getting more users to your website, and then converting them to your app. So I will cover a little bit about SEO, and then Felipe is going to tell you about how you can take those web users and convert them to the app. So in general, I think it's important to know that web acquisition is more efficient. Capturing a user costs 5 times less than driving an app install. So when you look at like the actual prices of a web users versus an app install, they are a lot cheaper. And when in need, 87% of people still turn to a web search engine first. So it's easier to capture that intent from a user on the web and then convert into the app. So so acquisition is easier on the web, but app conversion is a lot more effective. So most transactions happen in an app. Native mobile apps drive more sales than mobile websites, actually 3 times more sales. And app transactions are increasing a lot year over year. And users that are in your app actually also are a lot more likely to stay with you and return and engage. I think they're twice as likely to convert and twice as likely to be retained than the user you get on the web. So, okay, easier to get on the web, and then in-app, much easier to convert and keep them as a customer. So the strategy should be you acquire them on the web through either web ads or SEO, which we'll talk about here, and then you convert them to the app with banner. So, when you talk about SEO and what happened, what changed within SEO as Google became smarter, is that in the past, SEO was really all around like link building and creating snippets, and that has changed significantly over time. Google has started to get smarter and smarter, and is targeting people by intent and trying to guess the intent of the user in the things that they show. So when you think about how you can take advantage of that, the first step is to actually target the users by their intent, try to understand their intent, and then building topical authority around that. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. Design your user experience to fill that intent, create premium content to fulfill the intent, and then drive users to convert on their intent. in the website or convert them into the app. So what does it mean to target by intent? So the idea around this is that instead of like building content and websites that just go after keywords, it's really around building websites that target intent and use multiple, multiple keywords built in topics that are focused on the intent of the user. So when you think about, something like, and we'll use this example of liquid eyeliner, you start understanding that, eyeliner is really the keyword, but there might be multiple intents around it. How do you apply liquid eyeliner? What's the difference between liquid eyeliner and regular eyeliner? So the intent here is to learn. The intent could be to buy, I'm looking to buy this particular eyeliner. And then the other intent could be to just browse and look at options for eyeliner. So these are different intents, and for each of them, you can create different pages. And the more you fix the actual intent of the user, learning how to apply liquid eyeliner is very different than buying the eyeliner. So instead of building like one page for eyeliner, you build different pages by the intent of the user. So, SEO, and I think when you think about this and what does it mean to build authority and understanding the user, SEO is actually ranked among the next best alternative. So when you think about building your intent, your authority, and you look at like in all of these sites like SEO, SEMrush or Moz at your like authority, Google doesn't actually care about your overall authority, but only the authority on that topic with other alternatives on that topic. So in many cases, you might be a new website or an older website, and you might have really good authority, or maybe not so good authority overall, but you can still get very good on one specific topic. So in Branch's case, we have a lot of authority in deep linking. So if you look for deep linking, you'll find us very high up there, but maybe, if you compare us to a site like Amazon, our site authority is not that high. So when you think about building this and you think about, these are some examples of websites, and you can see their authority, user experience, content, and then conversions and what they each focus on. So, so when you think about, Google probably compares them in between themselves and not with like others on things like looking for like an eyeliner, for example. So when you think about basically building this intent, you start looking at, you look at first at the intent, and then you break it down into topics for that intent. So, browsing the product could be the intent. And then you look for topics around this. What's the specific product? Maybe it's eyeliner, maybe it's dresses, maybe it's TVs. And then you start understanding key phrases around this. And you can get these key phrases by even just starting searching or typing one of these. Google actually shows you what are the particular phrases, and you can do research into that and grouping them. And when you write with those key phrases in mind and the topic as well. So, some examples are lists, and lists used to be really big in SEO, and they can still be really good for browsing, but lists won't do as well into when you think about other types of intent, like a how-to guide, etc. So, the most important thing when you think about, going for SEO is really building this like high quality content. So you can start with subtopics. And then the other really interesting thing when we look at like how people look at this content, and and look at videos of people consuming content, there used to be this thought that like, content should be very short, under 500 words, to rank for SEO. And we believe that has changed over time. Long form actually makes a lot of sense. People usually, if you have good content, people will read all of it. And there's this thought that like long form content doesn't work. I would say from my own experience writing content for Branch, long form is actually the best type of content that drives the most users, and people do actually read the content. I think on Branch, people spent on average 8 minutes on our blog pages. And there's people who sometimes spend 20 minutes reading something. So actually people spend a lot of time reading your content, but only if you write good content. So this idea that used to be in the past that just write a lot of content, very short, very surface content, that does not work as well anymore. And the stronger long content works very well. And media also, Google has started like ranking media. So doing videos, putting images also works very well in helping get ranked by Google. So when you think about refining this, some refinements would really be, sometimes you might not know all the topics and what people are searching for. So you can start like looking in Google Ads sometimes helps you with this, but also some of these other tools like Moz, SEMrush, but also just typing something in Google and see all the different things that Google suggests. Those are things that other people are searching for. So we highly recommend that you start thinking of your topics to go beyond what you think the topics are and using these tools to understand what people are actually looking for around the product. And lastly, it's really important that once you get users to actually get them to convert on the intent. And I always think about the relationship between a company and a user. It's similar to dating. I've used this analogy before. But usually when people come to your site from Google, in many cases, they are interacting with you for the first time. When they come from social media or direct or even email, they usually they know you, they've seen you before. But when they come from Google, in many cases, they're discovering you. So it's very important that you don't overwhelm them, that you don't show giant pop-ups, that you don't ask for sign-ups too fast, that you move, don't try to close the deal on your first date. So try to get them to know you, show them really good content, and Felipe will show you some examples. And when you think about banners, Google actually penalizes you if you show someone coming from a search a giant banner. So it's okay to show them a banner, but make it smaller. And as they start engaging more and more with you, then you can get a little bit more aggressive to try to close that deal. This is an example with Masterclass, and they did something, they tried to understand, and the person who teaches the class with me at Stanford, he actually held Masterclass with this. But when you start looking for something like what is funnel, benefits of funnel, they have a whole article around like cooking with funnel, and then they tell you, oh, are you interested in a cooking class? Here's like Masterclass, right? So they start going with your intent, what is funnel, what cooking with it, and then they start slowly get you into actually convert to getting their app. So with that, I'll pass it to Felipe, who's gonna, now that we've talked all about getting web users, let's talk about how to convert them to app users. Felipe, I think you're muted.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. Okay, thanks, Mada. So now that you know how to get users into your website, obviously many of you already do SEO today. You're driving users to your website via emails, via social. Users are getting there organically or via ads. What I'm going to be talking about is how do you optimize that web traffic to convert users into your app at the right time. Obviously, there's value in users in your website. There's much more value to users in your app, but you want to make sure that, just like with SEO, that the calls to action on your website for users to interact with your app needs to be based on intent. And so this is an area where Branch works very closely with our customers to make sure that they're leveraging that traffic intelligently, and oftentimes they reduce their dependency on app install ads because they're doing this so well. So we like to say that mobile web is an untapped source of value. We see very few companies really using it to the full extent to be able to optimize for app growth. And so we'll be talking about kind of why this strategy is important, what some of the main tactics are, and then also kind of the examples from some customers that have had a lot of success with this strategy with branch. So first, just wanted to show kind of, this is a sample of 300 branch customers across various verticals, so e-commerce and travel, banking. We kind of just normalized kind of their growth across all of them. And what we saw over the course of 2 years is that many of these customers had about, together about 1/3 of their overall traffic on mobile in the app. And as they adopted branch features, and especially a web to app feature, they increased the share of their app traffic to about half. And as many of you know, and as many of you, have with your own apps, a user in the app is much more valuable than a user on mobile web, because they convert at a higher rate. You can send them push notifications. The relationship that you build with your customer is much different in the app than it is on web. And so kind of this is the goal of this strategy, is to slowly grow that app traffic and optimize the web to app experience. So, we think about this strategy or really this opportunity in 3 different ways. And I won't go through all of the text, but basically there are three ways to think about this. Number one is, what is the scale of opportunity, right? There are some apps like Uber, which are basically app only, and their MWeb traffic might not be all that high. But for an e-commerce company or a travel company or a banking company, you might have actually a much larger ratio on mobile web compared to the mobile app. And so there's that scale of opportunity to convert those users into the app. The second thing is the value of the opportunity. So how much more valuable is an app user compared to a web user? And so you multiply the scale of the opportunity by the value of the opportunity, and you're able to quantify, what this opportunity is worth to you as a company. And then the third thing is the value of execution. So how well do you perform this web to app strategy? How often are you iterating and testing? How often are you, creating new audiences on mobile web based on intent and driving the high value user, high intent user into your app? So this is an example from a customer of ours who, we had kind of an unfortunate situation where we launched a branch in their app. We launched a single web banner on their mobile website to drive users into the app. And then the whole team at the company actually turned over, and we no longer had a primary contact, which is unfortunate, but the reality of the situation. And so what happened over the course of 12 months is that this customer had just one banner on their mobile website to drive users into the app. And you can see that there's this huge blue ocean of opportunity that they did not capture because they had such a static banner, such a static strategy. And at the end of the day, after a whole year, they didn't see much of an increase at all. And what's important is that you can see down here on the red section that the app users on average are worth $36 more than a user on web. And so this goes back to the previous slide where we're talking about the scale of the opportunity, which here is like 85, 90% of the traffic, multiplied by the incremental value of an app user. And so, we reached back out to the customer. We said, hey, I think we need to optimize this. We need to make changes. We need to capture this value. And when we quantified it with them, it was, a multi-million-dollar opportunity for them. And, obviously branch paid for itself, and, they were much happier with the growth. So this is mainly to highlight to you that if you have a banner on your mobile website, it's not enough. You need to optimize that to match user intent, because this is a massive low-hanging fruit that, if you do it correctly, you can lower your dependency on ads to drive app installs, and at the end of the day, drive much higher intent and more loyal users than you would through ads. So when we think about app adoption, we kind of view it in this kind of pyramid of acquisition. This can look differently depending on what your company does, and it could be inverted if you're a company like Uber or what have you. But this kind of assumes that the user in the app is greatest lifetime value. And you have all of these other channels like offline, like desktop, like mobile web, which kind of push users into your app at different points in their life cycle. So what you have with this user base on mobile web is an audience that is very close, just one step away from becoming your most valuable user. And because they've landed on your mobile website, they have some intent already. They went to organic Google search, they clicked on an ad, they clicked on an email. Perhaps they already have your app installed, but they just landed on mobile web because you haven't optimized your deep linking or what have you. And so the idea is to transform this traffic at the right time to drive them into the app. And we have strategies also for the offline to app as well as the desktop to app. But for this section, we'll focus primarily on the web to app section. So here's how to think about what a web to app strategy is not. We see this time and time again where major companies like Yahoo, for example, or startups as well, just have a static banner on their mobile website. What you see here on the right-hand side is just an iOS standard banner. It's very limited. Every user gets the same one. Perhaps it only shows on your homepage and not across your whole website. There's no personalization. There's no match of intent. It disappears very soon, if the user starts to scroll. And so this is the type of banner that is going to, not perform very well. It's going to have lower than a 1% view to click rate. It's going to have a very, very low view to install rate. And so, what we see is that just by optimizing this a little bit, personalizing, changing the language, changing the color, personalizing it to your brand, can make this banner perform 4 to 5 times better and drive significant app growth at a very, very, very low cost. So how we like to think about web to app strategy is, again, by matching user intent with your call to action, right? Like Mada was saying, this strategy is like dating. You want to get to know your user, and then as you understand what they're doing, as you understand what it is that they're looking for, or once they complete a specific type of event, then you can get more aggressive and turn up the volume on this strategy. And so what we show here are examples across various customers of ours who implement different types of banners depending on the stage and life cycle of that user. So on the left-hand side, you have a casual browser who visits underarmour.com. This is someone who perhaps it's only their first or second time on your website. This is a person that has never made a purchase. And so, maybe you want to do something personalized to your brand, but not something aggressive that, might turn them away from your website and lead to churn. Then you have, perhaps a high frequency user, someone who over the last 7 days has visited your website over 5 times. This is someone who has high intent, who has begun to form a real relationship with your brand. And so perhaps this is someone who you can show a full page interstitial and drive them to the app where they're going to engage even more. For media, oftentimes we have videos that we view on mobile web. You don't want to disrupt this experience, but if halfway through the video the user pauses, you can show something very subtle, and this actually performs really well for them to continue the experience in the app. This is where deep linking and deferred deep linking are really important, so that when your users are transitioning from that web environment, they are going to get the same experience in the app and not have to research and have friction along the way. And then the last thing we see be very successful is post-transaction calls to action. So this example here is from a company that you can book doctor's appointments on their website or their app. And so after someone has made a booking with this doctor on mobile web, you show a personalized full banner that has liquid tags that show a custom image and custom name, and invites you to kind of look and manage your upcoming appointment inside of the app. This is super high intent. It has very high click-through rate and follow-through rate. And so this kind of, I think, starts to highlight how we think about the web to app strategy with our customers. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to speed through these a little bit. This is a lot of content, but the way that we think about web to app is through this maturity model, where at the beginning, you focus on a baseline of understanding, with a very basic banner, what is my coverage across my site? What are the different audiences that I'm targeting? What are the various creatives that I'm using? Am I A/B testing to see kind of which color, which messaging is working best? And kind of what data can I use on the client side to optimize that experience even more? And so as we progress through this model with our customers, we see best in class usage and extreme app growth from mobile web. And so it's a crawl, walk, run plan. And if you guys are interested in learning more about this, feel free to reach out. So there are a few things that matter in terms of adoption and kind of performance. One of them is genre. So this is based on the top 100 US apps that use Branch, and the performance of their banners from a view to click rate and click to install rate across various verticals. A news company, normally users are fine just reading an article and leaving. And so the performance of banners may work less so than an entertainment company where you're streaming videos and you want that faster and better user experience in the app. And so if you're thinking about how does my web to app strategy compare, how does that compare to my peers? It's a very important question, and it's something that we can help you answer and kind of optimize so that you're the best among your vertical peers. Obviously, size and placement of the banner matter. This just shows kind of the view to install rate from a full page versus a top banner versus a bottom banner. We see so many companies just settle for a top banner, and it just performs so poorly relative to everything else. And so, yeah, just more to think about here in terms of how to update what you guys might be doing today. And then this is a sample of Branch customers who we basically scored on a 1 to 5 of adoption. So, we have various features across the board for kind of our journeys, web to app banners. Our customers that were doing something very static versus customers that were minimally or low adoption for Branch. This alone was a over 2x increase in the view to click rate. And then for the customers that adopted journeys and actually did a much more effective and broader strategy, over 5x what the static baseline banners performed as. I think for the sake of time, I'll kind of skip through this a bit, but there are such minor things, so subtle, like just messaging on the same exact design that will change the performance of the banner and increase your revenue in app from a single campaign by 50%, by 45%. And so we like to say that branch pays for itself because it immediately optimizes the strategy and drives incremental revenue as soon as you kind of adopt it to a certain extent. So I'll skip through. This, I think, highlights that point as well, where just literally the color of the banner, of the blue banner, kind of impacted the performance quite a bit. The view to install for the green and orange was much higher. The purchase rate was much higher. The revenue downstream in the app was almost 10 times higher. And so these are the things that seem unimportant, but rather than spend $1 million on ads to acquire app installs, just change the banner on your website and save those $1 million. So now I think we get to the fun part, which is looking at some of the examples from real customers. We have Sephora here who obviously optimize their SEO. They get users into the app. They're within this makeup category, and they have custom messaging based on the intent of the user. And with Branch, what they're able to do is actually continue the experience to the makeup section through install by using kind of our dynamic links behind these banners. So that's one example. We have OfferUp, which is kind of like a OLX. Actually, they're owned by the OLX conglomerate. And they have different banners on different types of pages depending on the intent of the user. Again, the experience is continued into the app through the install process. And then this one I think is the coolest of all, which is for travel. I've completed this booking on mobile web. I click on this banner, and when I install the app, rather than be sent to the generic homepage, Vueling already starts retrieving my booking automatically, and it takes me to the booking right away. This is a super personalized experience that not only captures my intent on web, but continues that intent and that context into the app to make sure that my engagement and retention continues to be high. So we have some results of e-commerce companies and others where they've dramatically increased their app downloads from mobile web, dramatically increased their MAUs. We ran just a 2-month test with OLX in Portugal, and they had a 10x conversion based on kind of their branch banners compared to their kind of internal in-home banners that they built. And yeah, so we do a lot of exercises with our customers to try to benchmark their current state and try to quantify what the opportunity is from the total traffic share of each page, what the click to install rate could look like depending on the strategy, what this would look like, this number of installs would cost in terms of ads. And so what are your cost savings? And then what is the incremental revenue in the app from this strategy? And so, if you're interested to learn more, if you're interested in using this model with us, just reach out. We do this exercise a lot. And I think it can help you justify investing more time and more resources in that web to app strategy. So just to wrap things up, I'll show some organic examples from other channels. So we mentioned QR and desktop. These are examples where our customers are trying to transition their users from one device to another. The QR code is unique to this shoe, and so it deep links the user directly to that shoe within the Nike sneakers app. This is kind of a post-purchase example from a retail company where you can just insert your phone number and check out your order in the app right away. And then we also have, a lot of coffee companies and restaurants and banks who are using branch QR codes in their physical locations to get users to install the app. There are some, social examples where you can leverage your organic social posts to make sure that users install and get a contextual experience within the app right away. Words with Friends is promoting a coin giveaway, and so if I click the link, I'm taken to the app and I receive the coins immediately after install. A lot of different companies are using this because they have such a large presence on mobile web and social media. And so if you're not taking your users who already have your app from social media into the app, then it's just a missed opportunity. So we'll send these out later so you guys can see all of the examples. We have, sharing as well, where Airbnb uses sharing links. We have Yelp, where you can share links with friends and invite them. I think the important part here is that so much of this organic traffic is not measured. And so it's one of the areas that we help our customers is to really understand how this organic traffic is performing rather than just measuring your ads, right? So we'll launch a final poll, and then there are no questions in the Q&A yet. So if you do have questions, please drop those in. The second poll is launched. A pergunta é, agora que você ouviu o webinar, quais são as estratégias orgânicas que vocês provavelmente vão começar a usar mais no futuro?
We'll also share at the end of the we'll share at the end in the email the result of the polls before and after. It's great to see you.
Nós vamos compartilhar os slides e a gravação e os resultados do poll. Se vocês tiverem qualquer dúvida, o meu e-mail é felipe@branch.io. E muito obrigado para todos que vieram para o webinar. E a gente estamos bem animados para abrir o mercado da Branch na América Latina e no Brasil. Mais uma vez, obrigado a todos e boa tarde para vocês.
I think Gustavo asked to talk, so I let him. I'm not sure he raised his hand.
Oh, yeah. Gustavo, você tem uma pergunta? Do you have a question?
I guess not, maybe it was a mistake.
Ok. Ok. Obrigado a todos. Boa tarde para vocês.
Obrigado.
Abraço da Branch. Tchau, tchau.